I mean,
No.
I'm a little slow, so you'll have to forgive me.
Well, that's fine.
But you do look like you probably have some mad bars.
No, I definitely made beats for people in high school.
Did you really?
Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing, but I did it.
Were they any good?
They're okay.
Would you like to maybe beatbox? Or did you beatbox, or did you actually make beats?
No, straight on. I don't know.
On the MIDI?
On the MIDI. There we go.
Yeah.
It wasn't stolen Fruity Loops at all.
Fruity Loops?
Yeah, it's like
was it Fruit of Loom? Stolen Fruit of Loom?
No, I used to work for Duluth, so I can't mess with them.
Isn't that the clothing company, Duluth?
Yeah.
Where did you work for them?
Denton.
Is that where they're out of?
No, they're out of not Duluth, Minnesota. They're out of Wisconsin.
I didn't know there was a Duluth, Wisconsin.
There's not.
How'd you get linked up with them?
I just got a job.
Oh.
They were opening and I went there. That was my
So really inspirational.
It's not good. It's normal job stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But that was my last real job. Like, not for myself. That I had to wake up at a certain time.
Did you do design stuff for them?
No. No, I'm like a late bloomer. I didn't start I've only been full-time doing this for like a year and a half now.
Yeah.
I just had like regular jobs. I've had every job though. I like repoed vehicles and worked on trailers and
yeah.
I did it all. And then one day I was like, man, I should do this instead.
Yeah. Here, pull that mic up to you.
Pull
there.
it up to me.
Stoney Wayne. Is your real name Stoney Wayne?
Yeah, Stoney Wayne Bass.
Yeah. That's your real name?
Yeah. I'm named after, you know who Stoney Burke is? He's an old Jack Lord. He was on Hawaii Five-0. He had a rodeo star, like a rodeo show he did in the 50s called Stoney Burke.
Okay.
And my dad rodeoed, so he named me after that.
What did your dad do?
He had his card in bulldogging, but he like team roped and did everything. But he was better at bulldogging.
That's back when they did everything.
Yeah,
they
for
did
sure.
It all.
He did whatever he could do to make it work.
Heck yeah.
He just looked like Red Steagle, so he could pull it off.
Did he do okay? How many years did he pro rodeo?
He did had his card for like 2 years and then blew out his ACL and started like trucking after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What time frame would that have been?
Mid 70s?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm no count at writing songs, but I've wrote songs and they're all just my dad's stories.
Really?
Yeah, dude. He was way cooler than me. He rodeoed and drove trucks when it was cool, when you could get on speed and do 8 days back and forth. Just hauling cattle from Florida to Texas, 8 days straight awake back and forth.
Yeah, dude.
It was all the cool shit, back when all my favorite songs are all trucker songs back in the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, all that stuff. I love those stories of him. But he's old now and I've heard them all 50 times. So I still enjoy them. But the only cool thing is I got married a few years ago and now I'm hearing them and they're slightly different when he's telling my wife. I'm like, you're getting old, man. Oh. These stories are different.
Are they more interesting?
No, I feel like he's losing some of it. He's losing the good parts.
Well, he might be forgetting it a little bit.
I need to remember, hey, remember you told me you're on acid, that part? And just kind of throw it in there and see if he oh yeah. Because he's done the opposite of cleaning up. My dad did the opposite of what most people do. He retired and then he just
then he
went
went
off
wild.
The fucking rails, man. Yeah, he got super tattooed and just drinks all the time and just does what he wants to do all the time, which is sick, but.
So, I'm still married?
Married again.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it was just my mom dipped out when I was 7, so it was just me and my dad. And then he did the thing and raised the family, and I was in 4-H and did everything you're supposed to do. Yeah. And then I graduated, and he moved down here to Decatur. And then
he lives in Decatur?
He did.
Okay.
Yeah, because my cousin runs a trailer dealership out here, and he came in.
Which one?
Texas Custom Trailers.
Yeah, man, with the guy that owns it, Wade.
Yeah,
maybe?
That's my cousin.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Small world.
For sure. Yeah, we I worked with him over at he ran that Ag Vantage. Mm-hmm. And next door there's a trailer shop and we worked in there.
Okay.
Yeah, so
your dad moved here for how long?
A couple of years, 3 or 4 years, and that's how I ended up down here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where were you at before?
I was raised outside of Amarillo. We grew up on a little ranch.
Oh, you're from the Panhandle.
I am from the Panhandle, yeah. I'm from Hereford, actually, but nobody knows where that is.
Yeah, man. I know where Hereford is.
That helps. You know the smell. That's all anybody knows.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So did y'all run cattle out there, or did he work it?
My grandpa did.
Okay.
My grandpa did for a long time, and then my dad, he worked feedlots, and then he worked for the county for a long time, and he retired from there.
For people that don't know, explain what it's like up there.
Man,
in a town like that.
What's crazy is one of the most annoying things out here is you hear people be like, I'm from a small town. I'm like, it's a small town, but when you're 30 minutes away from somewhere else, I grew up like 45 minutes away from anything else in the middle of nowhere. And it's just like, we have like shit fog as you come into town from all the cattle. Mm-hmm. And it's weird. It's a really
Explain
weird,
that fog.
Man, that fog's something else. You come into town and there's like a mist, but not like a cool mountain mist. It's just like straight shit fog.
Poop mist.
Oh my gosh, it's terrible. Just straight pooping. But what's ridiculous is I never had allergies out there. I move out here where there's trees and I'm dying. But, cow shit, good to go.
Right.
But no, it's definitely a place where everybody, all they do every night or mostly the weekends is just drive around. Mm-hmm. You drive to the Sonic, you drive to the community center in a loop over and over.
Have a couple adult beverages.
Yeah, man. Piss on somebody's, hood just to see if you can do it.
Yeah.
You can.
Right. Small enough town.
Yeah.
You would think it'd be the opposite.
Yeah. No, man. I mean, it's a cool place to grow up, but I'm glad I didn't stay.
Yeah.
One of those type things.
What do typically people do that stay there? They
work in you end up working in feedlots or driving a truck. That's pretty much it. That's like the equivalent of the oil field out there is you work in the feedlots, you drive trucks, you work for whatever your parents did. That's a lot of it that I see, which is like the weird part is like all the people that I would think I didn't get along with in high school. That's the weird flip of it is I've done work, like design work for people in high school that I just didn't get along with. And now we see it's just a weird world flipped around type thing,
Yeah.
But,
in a cool way?
It is in a cool way, I was kind of one of the weirdest things about growing up is realizing you were a turd when you were young. And you just one of my things I do every morning is you pop up and, I'm going to the restroom and taking care of my morning. And I look at my memories on Facebook and I end up just deleting stuff I said, 2008. Not that it was offensive. It was just cringy. I said things that I was like, oh, okay. But the only one that I see it every year and it kind of brings a smile to my face is 2008. Everybody said your status is, we thought you had to say is doing so-and-so.
Yeah.
I just always put is going bass fishing. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's my favorite one every year.
It is amazing how much I wouldn't want to hang out with me.
Oh, absolutely. And I thought I was cool as crap too. I really thought I had it going on.
Yeah. I'll see people that I haven't seen since high school, and a lot of them, they kind of say it as a dig, but they'll be like, man, you're so much different than you were in high school.
Oh, and dude, I get those.
That's a bad thing or something. And I'll say to some of them, I'll be like, yeah, it changed a little bit. You're the exact same. It's like, who would want to be the exact same person as when they were a 16-year-old in high school?
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
a turd.
Well, and I think that's that thing about growing up in a small town is there is a lot of that.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, most of the people I know, everybody's different. It's like you're supposed to be. Why would you want to be the exact same
dude?
I
had it all figured out at 17 and I'm good to go.
Yeah, exactly. So when did you move from Hereford?
I moved from Hereford to Amarillo to go to school. I went to WT and I did radio stuff there, radio and film. And I had a radio show where I did old country music and that kind of thing.
Cool.
Yeah. And that's now I do a lot of DJing and that's what started it. Mm-hmm. But I moved out there and I did that for a couple of years. And 2010, I moved out here, I think. Yeah, that is when it was 2010 because it was, yeah, that's right. And I, for no reason, I just needed to get out. Dropped out of school 3 times. Figured I'd try something new,
There you go.
But yeah, because out there, I grew up in the music scene, but in all music scenes, I booked a bunch of hardcore and punk and metal shows for forever, and that's kind of what got me into being a designer. I just making flyers.
I could see that influence in some of your work
for sure.
There's I don't even know what you would call it. I usually, whenever I explain stuff like that, I usually butcher the terminology.
Man, I don't know the terminology. That's the one thing is I feel like an outsider in this world because I'm not super artsy kind of guy. I didn't go to school for it.
Yeah.
And so there is a part of that I do feel like an outsider because if I'm trying to talk about something, I'll have to look it up to make sure I'm not sounding stupid because I'm the way the letters do different here, it's real nice.
Yeah. It's that way with music with a lot of people, guys who are, classically trained or have some sort of formal education in music. They're armed with a lot of information and terminology and stuff. And then what's funny though is when it really comes down to being creative and making something and doing something unique, a lot of them have a tough time with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the same thing in like my world, because I think like we were saying, like the DIY, like the do it yourself thing of like doing punk shows and stuff, that kind of told me I didn't have to ask for permission to do shit.
Exactly.
Like I can just do it.
If you like it, you like it.
Yeah. And I don't need a reason to. I don't have to explain why this worked. It sounds cool.
Yeah.
Looks cool. Whatever,
That's the way I think most art, the best art, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. I mean,
because you just find a bunch of different influences that move you in a certain way and stick them all together.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why like there's a big correlation to me between like punk music and like folk and old cowboy music. It was people that didn't really know how to play their instruments that well, just kind of singing what they knew.
Yeah, just do it because it's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
It moves you.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Well, so I guess your dad was just really into music, or?
I mean, sort of. Like my dad was enough, but it was really like my grandpa. Like my grandpa wasn't into music, but he grew up like on the Texas-Oklahoma line in like Texola. He grew up in Eric, and he was like the same age as Roger Miller.
Okay.
And so he knew Roger Miller growing up and people like that. And he had barn dances growing up, and like Tommy Duncan from Bob Wills, one of the Playboys, he would come out there and play. And so I grew up around a lot of that kind of stuff with it, and then kind of rebelled against it because you're not supposed to like what your parents like.
Mm.
And so,
yeah.
And so I went into like whole different thing and then came back around.
It's part of being a lame kid.
Absolutely.
That whole you get a little older and you're like, man, they were onto it.
Oh, I know. Now I hope he doesn't listen to this, but like my dad's like cool as shit. And I thought he sucked growing up. And now I'm like, oh man, you did all the coolest stuff, dude.
Yeah. It's nice to hit that point where you have that realization, but then it's kind of a bummer because you probably didn't appreciate them as much as you should have.
I hit it pretty early because me and my dad did spend a lot of time together. When he was driving, so he would work for the county, and then on the weekends he would drive trucks, and I would go with him on the truck and stuff and listen to music, and he would just talk about like rodeo days and dudes that are stock contractors that showed me, like there's this one, I'm going to save all names, but he's a pretty big stock contractor, and him and my dad rodeoed together growing up, and he has all these records that he's like, oh yeah, he showed me this down in the basement, and we would roll one up and listen to this, and it was like Guy Clark and Jerry Jeff and all the standards, and he always relates them back to that, and I was like, okay, so I could tell what that guy was into because of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it definitely makes you like appreciate like that era of, because I'm like, even when it comes to art and stuff, I'm sort of obsessed with like the 70s in Texas, because it was where like the hippies and the cowboys came together in music and in art and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of cool shit going on there. And then he sort of lived part of that. So I like to hear those stories.
Yeah, there seems to be a cool merging with those worlds of that art world, and then there's a grit and a realness and a blue collarness to a lot of the Texas stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like even a guy like your dad, probably a pretty hardened guy, rodeoed hard, worked hard, played hard. But then within the culture still here in Texas, there's a lot of appreciation for art.
Yeah.
And those two worlds coming together are super interesting, because when you get out on the coast or you get into more metropolitan areas, it's really segmented in terms of like the art world, and then you're more like blue collar type people.
For sure.
And those don't mix very often.
Well, and that was like kind of my avoidance, or just like why I don't like being called an artist ever.
Yeah.
Because it has that negative connotation.
I struggled a long time with like I'm an art. I'd always joke with my wife too. She'll walk in the house and I call it like arting, and she'll walk in the house and like the lights are dim and like I'm just sitting over there with my guitar in the corner, and I've been there for 4 hours.
Oh yeah.
She thinks it's the weirdest thing ever. And she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I am arting. I have been arting all over this house today.
I've been having all the creative juices just flowing all day long."
I have always shied away from it being like art. I'm an artist.
Well,
because there's like always a pretentiousness to it.
It is. And especially if you grew up like super blue collar like that, you mix the two and you're not sure what to think of it. And then, and I think that's kind of why like my comfort zone is doing Western stuff, is because it kind of mixes both those pretty easily.
Yeah.
And it's like I kind of think with like cowboy stuff, the reason I like it so much is I don't get to live the life that I did growing up. Like I don't get to ride horses or do any of the things I used to, but this is like my only connection back to it.
Yeah.
It's like, I get to do those rough little Western scenes and it feels like it.
Do you think in some ways it allows you to reimagine it in a different way?
Yeah, absolutely. It brings that real nostalgia that I can make it be what I wanted it to be.
Cool.
Because doing it, like, it's not fun. It's not cool. It's like, everything stinks and you smell bad and you feel like shit. But looking back at it, you're like, oh, those were pretty good times. And I can remember it like that.
Yeah, you get to pick the romantic parts of it.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't get to remember, getting thrown off into a pipe fence. You get to remember, like, how beautiful the sunset was.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, there's something about it. And until somebody really travels up into the Panhandle and sees that whole world up there, it's hard to understand it.
Yeah,
man. And it does breed a certain type of person. And
yeah, man, I think that's why there's such good music, like out of Lubbock and that whole area there is, I think it's Lubbock because that's the biggest city around there, but people come from all around out there, and it does do.
Ooh, we might get in trouble with lumping Lubbock into the Panhandle.
Man, I've got into this several times.
Hey, well, I don't care, but I got absolutely destroyed by some dude online because I called Lubbock the Panhandle, and I was going up to Amarillo, and he went through the whole deal on my Facebook thing, and he was pissed.
I have a feeling I know who you're talking about. Is he an authority of Lubbock up there?
An authority? No. I think he's a musician, though.
He didn't write a book just now?
I be honest, I saw his comment, and then that's as far as I went.
You know who I'm talking about? Okay, yeah.
You're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy.
Yeah, because there's a guy that's an authority. I mean, he's a good dude. I like him, but he's very particular about Lubbock.
It's like,
man, I lived in Lubbock, and I can get shit for it. I hated Lubbock.
Really?
I like being there. I don't like living there or like the time I spent there. And I may have been in it was a worse time in my life too. So I may have been bad there. I'm judging things on times. It's like Amarillo. I go back and I spent a lot of time in Amarillo and it was terrible. And I go back and it's still terrible, but I can maintain it for a little bit.
Sure.
Because it's weird. Those places do have Amarillo has a really cool little art scene going on, cool stuff going on there. But I feel like I can only see it looking back. And it's like we were talking about booking shows. I think it's because it's equidistant between everything. And that's why Amarillo worked. It's it's halfway between Denver and Dallas or Oklahoma City and Albuquerque. And we could book shows for bands that shouldn't be there because it was in the middle of a long ass drive.
So now you're booking part of this and the live music side of this.
I was, yeah. I helped run a venue is a really rough word for it. It was, about double the size of this room. It was rough, but it was fun because,
a lot of energy, I bet.
It was, man. And a lot of smells, a lot of energy, a lot of smells, a lot of stuff going on.
So, but it was like a rock club.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. It was the kind of thing that I remember the first really time I remember really getting punched in the face was I tried to defend this dude that had this super expensive cab and got a 40 thrown at it. And I was like, hey, you shouldn't do that. And this dude just I'm not proud. He knocked the crap out of me.
The dude that threw?
Yeah, that threw it. I tried to confront him.
He threw a 40?
A 40 of malt liquor at an orange vintage cab.
Did y'all sell
no 40s
in there? So they would bring it in?
Oh, yeah. Big time. People brought whatever they wanted.
Did y'all sell alcohol? You had
no,
to.
No.
You didn't sell alcohol at all at that place?
This is super DIY, man. This is
So it's just a room?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's kind of cool.
It was super cool for the time. And I could get the people that I was listening to into this room and we could make it happen. And that's kind of what I was saying. I could get this is MySpace time. So I could send somebody a message on MySpace and then be like, hey, how much do you want to play this? I could do that. And we just set it up and it worked.
You just did hard tickets at the door.
Yeah, if that. And just, there you go. Let's come in.
Come on in.
Yeah, and, that process kind of fucked me over. I mean, messed me up a few times because we had one of the bigger shows we ever booked. This band came. We had a ton of kids show up, made a lot of money, and somebody stole our jar from the door.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare, man, because these were dudes from one band was from Boston and one band was from somewhere else up there. These were I'm 15 or 16. These were dudes with tattoos on their face, scared the crap out of me. And I was like, what are we going to do? They're going to kill us. They're just going to murder us. That's what's going to happen, which is, pretty sound logic. But we just went around and raised some money, and it worked. They're really nice, but that was the first time like, this is not going to go well for me.
So you weren't doing this as like a real form of income at that?
No, not at all. Okay. It was honestly because I wanted to see the bands, and somebody had to do it.
Did you listen to country growing up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Country? But then you made the transition that high school years into like some heavier stuff.
Man, I'm like super ADHD. Like I didn't get diagnosed with that till late in life, but it's been always apparent to me. And I listen to everything all the time. And so like I was super into country, but I was also super into all the rest of this. And it was just like segmented parts of my life, you know? Yeah. But I think that's growing up. I would grow up in Hereford and I would go to shows in Amarillo. So it was like different parts of my life.
Yeah.
And I could segment those out. And I still kind of think I do that with things like I still go to a ton of metal shows and I'll go to rap shows and I go to, because I don't know, man, life's too short to like do one thing.
So that's when you developed your mad bars.
Yeah, that's exactly when it was. I was going and listening. I was like, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
People slamming the lunch trays down for like a beat. That's the back beat port. So it's pretty good.
Can I hear some?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
I don't know if I remember any of them. If it wouldn't be completely terrible, I would try, but I don't think so.
You still listen to some rap?
Oh, yeah. A ton of it.
I got super into the lo-fi stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Recently. Love it.
Yeah, man. That's, I have a bunch of, like, do you know who John Moreland is?
Mm-hmm.
So John Moreland, and I'm really good buddies with a dude that plays with him all the time, John Calvin Abney, and he does a lot of lo-fi, like hip-hop beats.
Okay. With Moreland?
Moreland actually just released a beat tape. He does it on his own, but yeah,
is it just like tracks or
there's no like lyrics or anything? It's just straight like lo-fi beats.
Interesting.
It's really cool, man. Because that dude's like a huge sneakerhead too. Him and John Calvin both are. Yeah, like
wow, shoot, I got that in common with him.
Yeah, big sneakerheads and big like do hip hop stuff. But yeah,
dude. The lo-fi thing. Trying to explain that to somebody. There's even drummers too that somehow don't think that. I understand where they're coming from, where they think that it's not correct.
Yeah.
And it's not in time. But explaining to drummers the idea of playing behind a beat or in front of a beat or on top of a beat.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
there's guys that, they'll be like, well, it's either in time or it's not.
Well, that's like what you're...
I don't know how you can't feel loping into a beat too.
Well, and that's also what you're saying about like there's a point where you become too trained that you can't think outside that anymore.
100%.
And I think that's sort of the same thing as like with the stuff I do with like drawing or the typer thing, I know the rules enough to break them as long as I don't know them too much. And I think that's like my level right there is like, I know what rules I'm breaking, but I don't want to get too wrapped up in those rules.
So do you have other artists that will look at your stuff and sort of be a little bit perplexed in the sense of, they'll be like, how did you decide to do this? Like, where did... I
do, but it's like not as negative as I thought it would be. That's like a big thing that I always, I think everybody deals with like the imposter syndrome thing. And, why am I even doing this?
Explain
Who cares?
that. What is that?
Just like the idea of like, am I supposed to be here? Am I a fraud? Like people are looking at this. It's just the idea of like, what is everybody else thinking about what I'm doing?
So is that just a confidence thing?
I think it's a confidence. And I think it's just like part of my creative process. I realized like a couple years ago that there's a part of my process that I'm going to hate what I'm doing. And when I work through that, then comes the good stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's just like once I accepted that, like, because I feel like I would have to be a sociopath to like love everything that comes out of what I do. Like, I think with a songbook or anything, there's like all this stuff that didn't make it and this that did. Mm-hmm. And every once in a while you start like critiquing that. You're like, why can I not do as much as this person? And I think social media breeds a lot of that. It's like you see the rose tinted lens or whatever it is from everybody else. And you look on the internet and you're like, wow, these people are playing these shows and they're doing all this and they're doing so much and I can't even get through this.
Yeah. There was somebody that has a quote, something like comparison is the killer of all joy and happiness.
Absolutely.
And just you got to be able to be happy for somebody else that's finding some success with whatever they're doing.
See, and that's my thing is I think I'm like almost too big of a cheerleader. I get so stoked about everybody else doing everything.
That's a killer quality. See, not a lot of people have that.
I get so stoked. I mean, the only time it really hurts me is if I see somebody doing something good and I could help them like visually be better, I kind of push into that. And sometimes it makes me lose money, but I think that's a part of like the ups and downs of it, Yeah. I see somebody doing like a really cool, like I have a friend that has like a taco stand and it was really cool, but I was like, man, I would love to make that dude a logo, but I know he's not making a lot of money. I'm just going to do it. and it ends up working, you know?
Yeah.
I like making people look the best they can if I can help at all.
So you went to school in Amarillo.
Yeah.
And then you ended up dropping out a few times.
I did, yeah.
And when did you like really start like drawing or making art?
So, okay, I'll tell the story because this is like, and growing up in Hereford, this is a Hereford story.
You only have 5 more minutes.
Only 5 more? So, okay, I'll go. But kidding. I was like, whenever I would take notes in school, I would just doodle like crazy because that's how my brain would work. I could listen to what you're saying if I'm doing something else. So I would doodle. I would do like all these. I grew up watching like, I couldn't sleep at night, so I would watch like all the old like 40s cartoons like Chuck Jones and Tex Avery kind of stuff. And I would doodle when I did it. And this coach that he did not like me at all. And he wasn't my coach. He was just a teacher.
You're saying coach like football?
Like, he was a cross country coach. Is what he was.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And he like saw me doing this. And, you know, I wouldn't say I was a troublemaker, but I did like start shit a lot. I just like to make things more fun.
That might be the exact definition of troublemaker.
Yeah, but it was me, so it couldn't have been. But, and so like, you know, he took this note that I was doing that had all this ridiculous stuff on it and made it into an overhead and like made fun of me in front of the class. And I was like, man, that really like, you know, for being like the dude that started all this shit, that was the thing that hurt my feelings. I was like, and I just kind of like closeted that after that.
Interesting.
And I just
hold on. So he saw you doodling and just making some stuff and he made a presentation of it to make fun of you?
So the back of this is...
Did you kind of deserve it?
Yes, I did. I can fully say now that I deserved it, but it doesn't change the fact that it did like stifle me.
Sure.
Because the full story is I was kind of a shithead in this class. Like we were dissecting a frog or something with a substitute teacher there, and I was just throwing pieces of the frog out the window.
Perfect.
And I would just give them back, and it was just a cadaver with nothing left. So like, yeah, I definitely did deserve it. But it did make me like, I was like, oh, I'm not going to show anybody this ever again. And I kind of just like made it like a private thing. And like I would do like design for flyers when I book shows and stuff. But when I got with my wife, it was probably like 4 or 5 years ago. We were moving one time and she like saw these sketchbooks and she was like, what, you draw? And I was like, yeah, just kind of on the side.
Were y'all married at the time?
No, we were just dating. We'd only been dating for like a couple months at that time, which is pretty brave of her to help me move.
Sure.
Being as how I am. But she goes through and she's like, wow, that's crazy. And so she just started like pushing it real hard. And cause she like plays guitar and sings and stuff. And, she was like, you should like do this. And so I kind of like pushed it out and started doing it. And then like, you know, being the open, whatever, I, started seeing a psychiatrist a few years ago just for like, I was seeing like ADHD stuff. And I wanted to like, you know, I was like, maybe I should try to do some medication because I've never done anything like that. And it was like the shift in my life. That guy basically kind of called me out because so from booking shows, I went to running a record label, like an independent one. Like I did like digital and it was mostly like metal, punk, stuff like that. And I was talking to my psychiatrist about this and he was like, man, it sounds like you spend a lot of time helping other people. And I was like, oh no, it's my thing. He's like, yeah, but what do you do for you? And it kind of just hit me that like I wasn't doing anything for me. I was doing everything to promote everyone else around me. But like I wasn't doing it. So I just started like posting stuff on Instagram. I was like, oh, I'll draw this. Let me see how, and it started getting like really good feedback. And that was the first time I got that boost of like, oh, maybe I can do something. Yeah. And then I just like dove in and started taking classes online and went through the whole thing. And it just kind of came up real fast. So you did the DIY education on it too. Absolutely. But that was like more my speed. Like, sitting in a class and listening to somebody talk about something makes me want to lose my mind, man. Yeah. It seems, cause I'm a little bit like you. I'm a space cadet. Like I'm all over the place. And, like I have to have people around me to implement things. Cause I have so many ideas and stuff, but it's like, okay, bro, we gotta. I mean, I think that's a great thing. Like once I've kind of figured that like farm out of like, you know, hey, I can pitch this idea and helps it. Cause you know, things can go crazy, just like ideas in your head all day going out. And if you have somebody to pitch those to that help you apply them, you're like, oh shit, here we go. You get a lot done. Absolutely, man. But in terms of learning things, it seems like people like us, it's like going like a formal education route. I always felt like I was being forced into learning something. At a slow rate too. That's what killed me. Yeah, because like it's like, I get it. Let's go. I could sit there for 8 hours, not sleep all night and be like, well, I know that now. Here we go. Yeah. As opposed to going and seeking
the information on our own. It's like you made a level of commitment there, and no one's forcing me to learn it. I'm learning it just because I want to.
Yeah.
And then I'm like so much more into it. But
then because then it's my thing.
Yeah.
I own it because I made myself. We might just
kind of be sociopaths, but
I think a lot of creatives are, honestly, man. Probably. Like you talk to people that are creative, you're like, oh man, you're all messed up too. Cool.
Yeah. So you ended up going to some school. Like when did you start making the trend? So you were making art for more like rock, metal type punk stuff, and then you started merging over into some more like
really like that was just like me doing flyers and design. Like I never did a whole bunch of that, like of my own art. Like I knew, so when I moved to Denton, I kind of just like got into like meeting songwriters and meeting people. Like I don't know if you know who Slobberbone is, but they were one of my. I had this moment when I was in high school that this guy, his wife was making him sell all his CDs, and it was my musical transformation moment. He handed me the stack of CDs that just like changed my life. I didn't know that like there were rock and roll country bands. He just gave me like Whiskey Town and Uncle Tupelo and all these like bands that were like rock and roll country bands, and I didn't know it existed. And then like Slobberbone was one of them from Denton. And then I ended up like meeting them, and now I'm like maybe doing merch for them, and it's kind of a crazy deal. But like I just started meeting those people and going to shows, and they would see on Instagram like, hey, you do this, you want to do a shirt? And I just slowly built up from that.
Yeah.
Because like I did like bands and like friends bands, and that was a lot of it, like just kind of networking. I always say that I reverse engineered it. Like most of the time people will come out of school and they'll be looking for clients. Well, I had all these people that I've known for years that all of a sudden I have a skill and I can help people out. And so it kind of like reverse engineered that made it work, you know?
That's the best way to do it, man.
I think so, man.
It's got to be real.
It's all about networking no matter what you do.
Yeah. But like, it's better when it's organic.
Agreed.
You just networked without actually knowing you were networking.
Yeah, I was just meeting people and drinking beer, and then turns out it helped me.
Hashtag networking.
Right. Well, like we were talking about Mode. Like it's weird. The way I met Mode was just
Michael Mode. He's a bass player. He's playing with Tristan Mares, right?
Yeah, that's right. See, when I met him, he was my best friend growing up, and him played in a band together. It was in Hereford. Like the dude I'm talking about, he also played with like Randall King in his first iteration, because Mode played for Randall for a little bit too. And like this is back, way like early Lubbock days, like 2012, early for me. I was moved though. But I met him, and they were in this band called Logan Taylor and the Thunderbirds, which like, man, that's one of the bands that I wish would have worked.
Yeah.
Because they were great. I listened to I have like their thing on iTunes, and when I go into like the car and turn it on, it's, certain things will play.
Logan Taylor.
Yeah, like he doesn't make music or anything anymore, but I'm
gonna have to check that one out.
Yeah, man, it's on streaming stuff, but it's pretty good, man. It's very in the vein of like, I don't know. Did you ever listen to Whiskey Town? Like I was saying that?
Yeah. So which is funny that you call it country rock.
Well, like
because like Whiskey Town is one of those that when you say country rock nowadays, Whiskey Town's like folk.
Right. Compared to a lot of that stuff. But it's mainly because I don't like the term alt country. I think that term just got thrown so hard out.
I think there's a bunch of them that are we're having to come up with new terminology because it's like, we just don't know what to.
Man, and there's ones that like drive me crazy, like cowpunk. That one's the worst one for me. And that one's been around forever.
Cowpunk. The one that hasn't been done yet is cowpop.
Cowpop. I could see that. I mean, that's what. Is that like what Casey Musgrave's new record is? That's what happens when you go.
I think that could be.
I mean,
I love her stuff.
I do too. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that there will be that, because there are a lot of people that I've seen that started out doing country that are going way more pop as they go in.
Yeah.
I think that's what that's going to be. That's cow pop.
Yeah. But like Casey, yeah, she's got some heavy pop influences, but I still wouldn't consider her like pop country.
No.
Some of that stuff.
See, and that's the difference is I like good pop music.
Me too.
But I'm not a fan of like most pop country.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
I'm the exact same way. Cheers to that.
There you go, man. No, I mean, I grew up
I have a playlist on Spotify, and it just says pop because I like it too. And I just, but some of this stuff is so bad.
Oh, dude.
And so shallow.
And that's
like you can write a good, catchy pop song and have some depth.
Dude, lyrically. Absolutely. I mean, like one of my favorite records of all time is a pop record. Like I love the Beach Boys and like early Beach Boys stuff and like Pet Sounds. Yeah, that's super deep and it's super poppy.
Heck yeah. Just because it's catchy doesn't mean it has to be bad.
High Fidelity, it talks about that, about like the happy pop music and how it's super depressing with the words, but it's super happy. It's my
What do they call it?
It's just pop music, like what came first. Off that movie High Fidelity with John Cusack.
I've never seen that.
It's great, man. It's like a heartbroken asshole that, runs a record store, and he's, better than everybody with music and has his heart broke a lot and relates it all to music. But it's good. It's John Cusack. It's the same thing as always.
Yeah.
But it relates to music, so I dig it.
Yeah, heck yeah, dude. So you're in Denton now.
I am.
And are you just freelancing for just pretty much anybody and everybody?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're making a design for me.
I am making a design for you. I'm excited about that. It's weird because the things I get stoked on, I end up with like 50 copies in front of me that I'm like, man, what am I going to do here?
Whoa.
Yeah, and so I try to go, like right now.
You do mock-up kind of things?
Yeah, I do like my thing lately is I realized I was spending too much time before I showed somebody something. So I just do super rough sketches.
Yeah.
Because like you can look and see what I do,
Sure.
And then like, what's really been killing me lately, I'm like, that's the weirdest thing about being self-employed is you're your own workflow.
Yeah.
And so you have to put things, and as things come, you're like, okay, how important is this one? Like lately it's been show posters because around like the end of November, you get a ton of shows. And so pushing those out
End of November you do? I
don't know why. I've done 5 posters for like the week of Thanksgiving.
Interesting.
Like Wilder Blue, I did one for them that's like that Friday. Yeah, that's what I was looking at there.
Hat on.
There, my buddy Isaac's opening for him. Have you listened to him? Isaac Hoskins? Yeah.
I think.
Man,
I don't think I've
been doing a lot of work.
I know I've heard of him.
Man, he's one of those dudes that like the first time I heard him, he's like, man, why is this guy not the one everybody's listening to? And not even just to toot my friend's horn because we became friends after I was a fan. He's just an amazingly real songwriter, and he's from Kansas. So I feel like Kansas Panhandle, that's like the same thing,
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just like the first time I heard him. And now like after years we're working together. Me and him have like this old man meeting where we have breakfast once a week and just bullshit.
I'll have to do, what's your favorite song of his?
Man, there's like honky tonk songs, like picking them up and putting them down that are really good. And then there's like sad bastard songs he does, like 1942.
Okay.
It's kind of like, I'm always like a sucker for like the old love songs. Like the whole hook on that song is like, they don't make love like they did in 1942.
Yep.
And my grandparents were married for like 74 years when they passed away, and they passed away like 3 weeks from each other.
Whoa.
And so, yeah, like that was my epitome of like, that's love, Yeah. And my grandpa, he's old, West Texas cowboy rough and didn't say much. And only relationship advice he ever gave me was sometimes you got to go to the barn.
Whoa.
Yeah, and I got this tattoo with a horse in a barn because I was like, yeah, you got to remember.
Oh, let's see that tattoo. You got a horseshoe on there too.
There you go, man. Yeah.
How come you did the horseshoe?
Just because that was what I associated hanging out in the barn with him with is, horseshoeing and him always pounding on shit.
Was he a horseshoer?
He wasn't. He just, worked.
He probably had to.
Yeah, to. He knew enough to do it when he had to, and then he made stuff out of horseshoes all the time. I remember, you've probably seen this, it was a horseshoe and a bunch of old nails, and it was like a balancing cowboy with 2 weights on it. Have you ever seen this? I don't know. It's just like a thing they put around the house, but it was like a horseshoe base and a stem that came up, and then old nails that made a little cowboy that had weights that balanced on it. And he was
interesting.
See, and that's like when you talk about art, that's what I think about is my grandpa.
We should do something with that,
dude.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's, if I could find a picture of it,
Mike, write that down. That's the implementer over there.
Balancing horseshoe nail guy.
Yeah, heck yeah. We should do something with that.
But like that's the kind of stuff when we talk about like where you see art versus what you were told versus what it is. My grandpa didn't set out to make art. He made little games of nails that you could take apart. Like functional stuff is my favorite. And so like he one of the coolest things that I have that I've been making stuff with it, but I want to do more with it is he left me this, or he didn't leave it to me. I just got it. This huge stack of Western Horseman magazines from like the 50s to like the 70s. And I want to steal all those pictures and make shit out of them. Cause there was like, people cared about what stuff looked like back then way more than they do now.
What do you mean?
Like the way the ads were set up or the way the pictures were, like you would think now that art is more like sought after. But I think back then people, even like ads, the ads looked good back then. You would go to like the back of a magazine and they had good ads and the type looked really good on them. And it just like, it took more to do it. So people cared.
Do you think, yeah, Yeah, for sure. Like by the time it got to where somebody was seeing that in a magazine, it had gone through so many different people.
Which like is mind blowing to me when I see something terrible now.
Yeah.
When I see like a terrible album cover of like a big artist, I'm like, you know how many people that went through that said that's good?
Yeah, it makes sense for like a smaller artist, DIY, but these big ones, it's like, how did you really? That's it? It's just him in a pasture holding his guitar.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Are you serious? Just cheesing?
And even like,
drives me nuts. Little effort. But now it's all about just quantity.
It is.
Because everybody's fighting the algorithm game. Just data points, as much as possible.
Speaking of that, I dealt with a guy that's like a bigger country guy, not in my vein, that we just...
Would you like another
yeah, absolutely.
Montana? Ice cold cruiser? Huh? Make it a cold snack.
Ooh. You know,
Have
that
you
really,
had a Montucky cold snack?
That speaking of design that looks better than the product, the design of that can is 50 times better than the beer. The beer's fine.
It's I love saying cold snack.
No, absolutely. In like the way that
How about our cold snack?
Dude, that can is designed so well. It looks straight up like a Bronco, like an 80s Bronco or something.
It's killer. But yeah, their design does look great. Heard they have a big gay audience.
I could see that.
Have you seen?
No, just because like
the way there's kind of a rainbow on there.
There is kind of a rainbow on it.
Are we allowed to say that? Well, my podcast, I'm allowed to say it.
I mean, they're supporting, so I'm into it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, so they, I don't know. I guess they got the big LGBTQ plus minus 1,000.
Yeah, because it's actually from like, because I was confused. It's from Wyoming and Kentucky, not.
Didn't know that.
Yeah,
I always have anything to do with Montana.
That's exactly what I thought. I think it's Wyoming and Kentucky and like I don't know, something like that. Because somebody corrected me. Everything I know, it's because I looked like an asshole and somebody corrected me on it. It's like, okay, now I know that.
Now I know that. Or that would be one of those things that you would just say it because you think you know it.
Yeah, it sounds correct.
Yeah, but you put absolutely zero research into it. I do that quite often.
Yeah, like, it was definitely that. I was drinking. I was like, yeah, this is Montana beer. Excuse me, sir. Who cares what I'm saying? I'm drinking it.
So back to this whole quantity thing over quality. I think in some ways you can have both.
You can, absolutely. But I mean, and it just comes to like the idea of like, you have to trust other people that are better at what they're doing than you are at that. Like hiring people that think that they can like, go out and, I'll do all my own album art, which like it can happen. It very much can. I'm not saying that at all. But when it looks bad and you're not good at it, you need to hire out for that.
For sure.
I don't know who said it, but it was basically like the, successful person hires out the things that they can't do themselves.
Yeah. I think it was Donald Trump.
That's probably what it was.
I don't do a lot of artists lack ideas.
I don't know if that's
when I say artists, I mean like the songwriter types that you would make.
Dude, absolutely.
Okay.
They 1,000% do. Like I'll give it up to like your whole camp and Mike and everybody. I love a good reference email.
Okay.
Because I think people are like I think it's like getting tattooed. People are scared to throw ideas because they think that you're going to copy it or like you're going to be offended. I was like, man, that's kind of the downfalls. I'll do several different styles. Is like, I kind of need to know where you're going.
Yeah. I mean, cause cold turkey, that would be like somebody saying like, okay, I want you to write a song. It's like, oh, good grief.
Just a song. Go.
Yeah. A song.
Does the subject matter? I don't know. You're the artist. Go.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. But then on the flip side, I've had it at times where it's like, yeah, you got to give somebody some direction and some themes and aesthetics and reference points. But I've worked with artists that do what you do, that it's like by the end of it, like I did all of other than actually doing it. It's like, dude, did you come up with anything?
Yo, for sure.
Because there needs to be an element of it that.
I mean, yeah. If not, why are you hiring somebody?
Exactly.
Well, and that's kind of like the thing. I worked with somebody who. I don't know if he's bigger, but he's trying to be, and it's not my camp of music. It's definitely in that pop country of, whiskeys and Bibles and, and,
which I love the Bible, but I mean, I know what you're saying.
It's a played out, like,
yeah, I just had to clarify that.
Yeah, no, sure. Ugh. It's not that at all. It's just the idea of like that image and like the overdone type thing. And like, I was just sent it with like no reference at all. I was like, do this. I was like, okay, go.
Yeah.
And they didn't like it. And it was exactly my thing.
If I see one more picture in a pasture, with a guitar. And I'm saying that because I've done it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like when I first started, the very first photo shoot I did, it was probably 5 or 6 years ago. I was in a pasture.
Yeah, but like, does that bother you? Because this is kind of what I think.
Well, I just look back on it now, and it's just like, and I could tell, like, I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know. And then you like go actually to my first record, and it's like, what kind of photo shoot did we want to do? And then it was like, well, let's take pictures of me shoeing horses.
See,
and
but
we
like,
came out with a really cool.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Is like that was when somebody first showed me you a couple years ago. I was like, dude, that picture, knowing that he's a farrier, is cool as shit.
Right, but it was real. As opposed to me, like, what do we do? I don't know. Let's go sit in the middle of a road. And
that's what I was saying about the pasture thing. I was like, it probably is more annoying with a level of like, I do this. I do have a, I live in this sort of life.
Yeah. Besides
somebody that you can tell never has done that. Sure. And so I don't think it's all about authenticity, but like you at least need to find who you are in it.
100%. And and it takes time, but like, and it happens. And when I first started, I was a little bit nervous because it was like, man, like, who am I? What am I? What do I want to write about? What do I want to sing about? What do I want people to like know me as?
I think the creative process will bring a lot out of you finding that too. And you were saying like quality over quantity. I think the other thing of it is you're going to have to make some turds. Like you're going to go through, like we were talking about the big versus the small. Like in those failures, you're going to figure out more of like who you are and what you're doing. And people, because it is like instant gratification because of like social media and stuff like that, you want to be famous now. You see all these people that like just came out and, now they're selling out the Opry, they're selling out Billy Bob's, and they don't even have a full band. And it's their like second record because they copied a formula somebody else was doing and did it pretty well. But then, like, you see their second album because that's the real test, it's like, what are you doing now? And it just kind of falls flat because there was nothing there.
Now, what do you think about, like, the second record? So if you got this cool thing going on the first record and then, like, the second record is just basically like the first one?
Well, I mean, if you did enough of it, you could be all right because, like, the whole thing is, like, you spend, like, your whole life writing that first record, and then you have to write the second one in a year.
Yeah.
So but if you have enough written from the first one, you can just write off that 2 times in a row.
True.
But then, like, I kind of think you also end up hating those second set as you get through the first set.
Yeah. I'm thankful that I didn't start getting any traction. And I didn't have any music out until my first record. So,
yeah.
And that wasn't until, like, later in my 20s. So it was like, I have so many songs. It's like I had 3 records done before I released my first one. So like I already had the plan for the second one and the third one. So like now I have like 4 or 5 that like I could do, and they were like already done. And so now it's just refining it and bringing it in.
But when you look back at those, like, so say you wrote a record like 2 years ago and you go back and look at it or a song, do you feel the same way about that song?
No.
Do you still think it's good or do you hate it?
Well, I think time is a good test for if it's actually good.
See, I've been doing that in a different form. I've been going back to like old like ideas and sketches I had where I had good ideas, but I didn't apply them correctly.
Okay.
And I like redo it and I'm like, oh, this is a good thing now.
Totally. So that is 100% something that I do. Like rewriting a song and things like that.
Your bones are there, but nothing else is because you didn't know what you were doing yet.
Yeah. Or like I have this chorus that's cool, but then for some reason the melody is just not meshing with the verse melody that I have.
Oh yeah.
And I just scrap them. And I've tried to force myself to completely scrap ideas in the sense that like I keep no record of them.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't have the melody written down. I don't have the lyrics written down, and just trusting that like I created it and it's in my head somewhere, but it just at that time it was not used in the appropriate place.
Well, and sometimes pulling it back out, it can come out differently and better.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is like I'll be in the middle of something brand new. Maybe I got this cool thing on the guitar and I'm just kind of riffing on it and just singing a little bit, and then all of a sudden this chorus part comes out and I remember it.
Yeah.
And I know I wrote it like 5 years ago. But you know, if you asked me to sing that part before I was actually playing that little new thing,
yeah.
I wouldn't be able to remember it. It's like it just came up.
Oh,
and then it was the perfect spot.
Well, you were talking about how you're an overthinker and like everything everywhere all at once. I think that's a lot of that is like when you're forced to do it, you're like, oh, I don't know. But like, not if you're forced to do it, if you're trying to do it like willing, like just on your own flow. But if you have to do it like a deadline,
yeah,
I always thought that would be the worst thing for me. It's the best thing in the world.
Interesting.
Because I can't let my thoughts get in the way anymore. It's like you just do, and your brain knows what it's doing, and you're actually trusting it for once, and it just comes out because you're not getting in its way anymore. And so like that's a big thing for me is like, right, that's one of the things I think I'm pretty good at doing posters for, is like posters have a hard deadline. And like right now I'm doing well, this won't come out, so I can say for a poster for my buddies in like Reed Southall, that band.
Yeah.
And I've redone the thing like 4 times.
Dude, your style would fit perfect with them.
See, and that's what I'm excited for them, because I actually met their guitarist, who was their ex-guitarist, and then joined again, and we became really good friends. And he kind of became like my little mentoree in design because he got real into it, and that was the first time I played that role. And then Reed hit me up and was like, hey, we should do this. And I met them all at his wedding, and I was like, damn, we get along great. And so it's really been like a cool getting to where we are there. And but yeah, like I've redone that poster the past 4 days. I'm doing birds with it because their new album's For the Birds. And so I'm kind of doing like these rough like vultures and shit. And I've drawn so many birds. I hate birds to begin with, like up and down hate birds.
You mean like physically?
Physically, I hate birds, which like brings that back as I'm drawing them too, because they're dinosaurs. I hate them.
Now, why do you hate birds? My grandma hates birds. She's scared of them.
I hate birds because of my grandma. My grandma would send me to the chicken coop to get birds, and they would all attack me as a kid.
Okay.
And the rooster would chase me around and peg me, and I just hated it. I mean, and there's 2 things. There's that, and when I was, I can't remember how old I was. I was pretty young, and one of my uncles had an ostrich farm in Shamrock out there, and my family thought it was real funny to like pin me, and I can't remember who was there. My dad wasn't there because he would have got pissed because he hates birds, but they stuck me in the pen with an ostrich, and the ostrich just chased me around, and it was the most terrifying thing in the world. And so, yeah, I hate birds. I tried to face it a few years ago, and I tried to feed an emu, and then I got pissed off.
You tried to feed?
Yeah, it was at a gator farm, so it's fine.
How did it go?
He tried to like get my finger, so I wasn't a fan. He was trying to eat me, clearly.
He didn't get it, though.
No, not this time. But I didn't give him another chance.
Did you pop him?
Yeah, knocked him.
Did you?
No, I should have.
Good for you.
I screamed like a woman and ran away.
Did you?
Yeah, there's a video that I try to hide of it.
My grandma's scared about him getting in her hair.
Interesting.
I think it happened when she was a kid. She also had the traumatic kid experience with a bird. It like got like in her hair and started like pulling on her hair and stuff. When
I was a kid, we were camping in like New Mexico, and hummingbirds go after red.
Yeah.
My mom had a big red bow on. There's like 5 hummingbirds after, and I thought it was the funniest thing in the world.
Boy, you've had pretty traumatic bird experiences.
Yeah, now that I'm saying it out loud, it seems worse.
His new record has a lot of angst in it, so maybe you can channel that into your bird design.
That's what it is. I'm just the pain through the birds there, man.
Dude, his new music is quite interesting. It like some of it has some like real like honky tonk vibes.
Dude, that album, the structure of it, because I'm a big album flow guy.
Yeah.
Like whenever I do like full albums with people and work through like the whole, because I also do like a little bit of marketing because I did like the record label for so long, and so like with smaller artists, I help them set up their stuff. And and I went to school for audio engineering when I was doing.
Oh, right on.
That was my radio, and I did all that. And I'm a big fan of the flow of albums, which I think is kind of a lost art now.
Totally.
People just kind of throw this. I worked with an artist maybe 6 months ago that was putting on an LP of 24 songs, and I'm insane.
At one time?
Yes, one album.
Why?
I don't know. I have no idea.
It's like the exact opposite of the way people consume music.
It didn't work out, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, he I love a good flowing album, and that album is really interesting because it starts out and it's very like the kind of weird Tom Petty kind of thing he has, and then like in the middle it hits this mark, and there's that dude from the Damn Quails. He plays on one of them. There's like a real chicken picking crazy part it's called like Here I Am, Here We Go or something. Yeah. And it's super honky tonk.
Yeah. I think that's the one specifically.
Yeah. And it's like right in the middle, and the album kind of goes a different direction after that. But that album's those 2 songs, I was telling them, I was like, man, if y'all write an album that's these 2, the feeling of that song and the one right after it, because the one right after it's about meth. So there's like that one, and there's one that's like High Speed Test or something. And it's just they're from Oklahoma. It's about meth.
Yeah.
But those 2 songs, I'm like, man, if y'all do an album of that, I love that. But yeah.
I heard a cover that he did of Petty. I'm trying to think which song. It's on his like live.
Oh, it's Breakdown.
Dude, it sounds really good.
It is really good,
and
man.
What a cool Petty song to do.
The best, man. Because I think they recorded that like right as he passed away.
Really?
Yeah, man.
He crushes the vocals on that too.
Oh, I know. And that's like kind of like when I was talking to them, it's like that's very much the feel I get from that. It's like, Tom Petty never fit into like an actual thing. He kind of did his own thing. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like who else wrote
What's funny is nowadays some of Tom Petty's music is like more country than some country.
Like you listen to Wildflowers, that's like a late album of his, and it's like, wow, it's an amazing album. It's like a songwriter album that's got like folk stuff to it, and it's beautiful, man. Tom Petty's one of my favorites.
Yeah, there's a whole segment of those guys that you got like Jackson Brown, you got Petty, you got Dylan. Like even like I would even like Mellencamp is in there, and then like I would even throw like Bob Seger in there.
Oh yeah.
And like some of those guys back in the day, they were considered rock.
Oh yeah.
And or like the Eagles, they're considered rock. Like
and the weird thing is like the Eagles get a lot of shit, but like the Eagles I like are like there was like
why do the Eagles?
It's just like a fun thing to hate the Eagles, but like there's certain
so edgy and cool.
Oh yeah, I know. Well, but like even with that, do you know who Graham Parsons is?
I know of him.
Okay, so like Graham Parsons had a huge like reach in that scene. He was hanging out with like the Rolling Stones and stuff back then, and like like Honky Tonk Women by the Rolling Stones. Yep. That was him, Graham Parsons, directly hanging out with them. And I'm trying to think of that other, because he was in the Flying Burrito Brothers too.
Yeah.
And so like that's my favorite. Is we're talking about like the 70s and all the music coming out of it. There's like a little scene right there of like the rock and roll dudes hanging out with the country dudes. And it's like there's an album I found from a friend like in the last 5 years called No Other by Gene Clark. Have you heard that? Mm-hmm. Gene Clark was like the first alt country band. He had a band called Dillard and Clark. It was really good. And like I'm trying to think that he wrote songs for a lot of other people. And he was in Flying Burrito Brothers. He was in the Byrds. Gene Clark was. And he came out with this album called No Other. It's amazing. It's like psychedelic country that's like really big and has strings, and it's like an album that I just kind of hit me out of left field, and I put it on like at least once or twice a week. It's incredible from front to back.
Yeah. But
it's just like that, like rock and roll, country feeling songwriting, and I just don't think it was as segmented back then,
Yeah. Well, and then there's the other, like there's contemporary stuff too, like this newgrass, bluegrassy type sounding stuff that most people would identify as like, a Mumford and Sons kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or like Lumineers. And those types of sounds are super, super interesting to me.
Yeah.
But then there's a more like traditional country sound that's also very interesting.
It's really weird how big country has came back over the past like 10 years.
Yeah.
Like I remember, and this is just me being that person at one point, is like all the things I used to really like, nobody liked. And now as I get older, everybody likes them.
Yeah.
Like the fact, like I was saying, I DJ, we have like a little DJ group and we do vinyl records and we do, we just call it Texas Boogie because it's like Tejano music all the way to like rock and roll and everything in between. But like when I was nerding out about these country records 10 years ago, nobody gave a shit about it. I was like, oh my God, I found this, Ernest Tubb record that was, this certain kind, and nobody would care. And now that's like a big thing, which also makes me mad because country records are getting expensive, like the old ones.
Well, they've turned into that novelty item.
I know, man. It kills me. I can't find like Japanese Johnny Paycheck bootlegs anymore. It's a real pain in the ass.
Well, that goes into like the collectible world that has exploded.
Well, and that was the thing is like, there's been like record collectors, but like nobody cared about the country albums until like the past like 5 years. And so I have like some really cool like old rock and roll and country albums, but then they got expensive because used to people would like set a box of records and be like free, and now everybody eBays and checks every one of them, which is, I get it, make your money, but kind of kills my game.
Yeah, for sure.
Of like finding that, like I found, do you know who Blue Cheer is? Mm-hmm. Most like they're like kind of the first like hard rock and roll out band. They played like that song. Most people, you would probably know this, "Summertime Blues" by Alan Jackson. Uh-huh. That's a Blue Cheer cover. Really? They're from like San Francisco. They're actually like there's this.
They're doing
but blues. It's like their version is like a crazy heavy riff in the middle of it from like '68, and They were made by this dude. The dude that made the artwork for that album was like a Hell's Angel that hung around in Haight-Ashbury and sold LSD. Insane stuff. But yeah, I have a first press of that record that's like worth a lot now. But when I got it, nobody knew what it was, and it made me real stoked.
Yeah, no kidding, dude.
Just like fun fact on that, the guy that made that album cover, his album, like I don't love the Grateful Dead. I like the way they look more than anything. And the
Dead thing has been tough for me.
I even had tickets to go see him with John Mayer because I love John Mayer.
You do?
And yeah, we just ended up not going, man. Ended up being a weird deal. But yeah, like I wanted to because I love John Mayer, man.
Yeah.
John Mayer rules. He's like the coolest guy in the world.
Yeah.
And people give him shit too. I was like, why? Because he's cooler than you? Because
people are, man, I don't get where people just hate on stuff because something is popular.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's bad.
I mean, it's a bad look to just hate on things because they're cool.
Yeah.
At least try.
Yeah, 100%. I like it. I like it.
Dude, yeah.
Regardless of if other people like it. And that goes for if a bunch of people like it.
For sure.
That doesn't mean I don't like it.
Man, and there's been times where like it's not that I hate it, I just don't give it the time. And then I'll get into something that people were into like 3 years ago. I'm like, okay, y'all right. This is really good, man.
Oh, dude, I miss it all the time. I missed it on the country boat, to be honest, because like geographically, where I grew up, everybody listens to country, and 90s and 80s and early 2000s country was, and then out here Texas country was basically the soundtrack for every. You're walking through the grocery store and it's playing in the background,
right,
and you're subconsciously listening to it all the time. And I was just learning to play guitar at that time, so that style of music is typically a little bit more simplistic.
Yeah.
So when you're learning an instrument, I think most people go down this road of like, you're having to learn like real sophisticated stuff. And unless it's difficult to play, you're like,
what'd you learn to play guitar? What were the first couple songs you learned?
Man, I was super into, like Jack Johnson, and I got into like a lot of the blues stuff with Stevie Ray and Hendrix.
Speaking
and I
of
was
stuff
a
that people
huge
hate
Clapton fan.
Yeah.
I'm still a huge Clapton fan. And he was one of those that really, he was one of the first ones that was able to bridge the gap between playing like blues music and rock music while also having this softer acoustic side, but playing his acoustic very interestingly.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So he incorporated a lot of finger picking stuff. And so that deal that John Mayer does, that sort of slap technique thing that he does while he's picking, like Clapton did that.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's not like he's the first guy to do that, and then like Mark Knopfler was a big one, Dire Straits.
Yeah, and Dire Straits rules so much.
So there was music that I was listening to that was maybe musically a little bit more sophisticated, and so it was like, oh, that stuff is too simple for me, And then I hit a point in terms of songwriting that probably at the beginning of college that I was like, okay, this thing, and I knew all the country music. Yeah. And it's like I just hadn't fully embraced it yet. But I knew
you were kind of like me. Like that's the base level when you grew up in places like that. It's like it's everywhere. It's everywhere. The pop music.
Yeah.
Because I would 1000% say it's the pop music of Texas. Because everybody does. You were talking about Jack Johnson. Man, Brushfire Fairy Tales will always be like a staple album.
It's amazing. You want to talk about nostalgia? Yeah. Because when I first started playing, all I wanted to do was be able to sit around a campfire with my buddies and be able to pick a little bit and play. And I was pretty mellow. I've gotten a little bit more amped up as I've gotten older, which is kind of odd.
Yeah, it's the opposite of most people go. Most people get quiet. You got louder.
Yeah, I did, which is weird. I've actually never really thought about that before. So
it's weird zooming out and you're like, oh yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah, but I was like way more mellow. I guess I'm sort of mellow. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out.
You don't have to be in a box. It's fine.
Let's keep it open.
Just start that, avant-garde jazz music, whatever. Do what you need to do.
The music thing, I've just taken influences from all over the place. And then now it's coming out in my music, which makes it difficult because people can't totally pinpoint, what you are and what you sound like. So it makes it difficult for some people to sink their teeth into it. Cause like I get crap from a lot of people cause it's like, I'm not technically traditional country.
Yeah.
But then, they want to be able to put you in a box. And it's like, why aren't you wearing boots, bro? I thought you were country. And it's like, oh my gosh, come hang out for a week and we'll see who's country. You know what I mean? It's like so obnoxious. It's like, just because I don't.
It's not an outfit. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, I kind of feel like I deal with the same thing of like, you always see these things like niche down into this or that. And I kind of like just take my life experiences and kind of make something that's, what it is.
That's the most interesting stuff to me.
Yeah. And like, that's one of the coolest compliments I get is like, I'm really bad at compliments. Like, I don't like, oh, you're talented, because I don't know, a long time ago, somebody told me that like, talent is the worst because talent, talent gets lazy and, hard work goes on, that whole thing. Right. And so like, I don't like that getting in my head because, maybe I'll think I'm good, and God forbid, we don't need that. And, but just the idea of like, I'm trying to do like my lived experiences together. It's like, I started out in a small town and living country, and then I went somewhere else, and people are like, oh, your work feels nostalgic. Like I've seen it before. And that's because a lot of my stuff is like, my first comic that I ever saw, or cartoon, was, do you know Cowpokes by Ace Reed?
Yeah, man.
Dude, that's great. I love you. Nobody ever knows that. And I try to tell them, it's that whole thing, like feed store calendars and like Ace Reed. That was like my first thing I saw that I thought was great. Yeah. And I always wanted to emulate that and like what it did. And like, I love little cartoons that talk about like, beef prices and stuff. And that was where I grew up, and it was great. And so like, if I can incorporate that with like what I know now, that's just like making my own thing where it is.
Totally.
I love that.
Yeah. You'll probably dig, some of the design stuff that I'll be having coming out too, because it's going to pull from some different directions for sure. And then musically it's the same way. And it's like, people are going to be like, huh.
I saw a little bit of it, not to go too deep in, but like the interesting, like retro wavy stuff. I dig that. Yeah, man. See, and it's funny you're talking about like lo-fi beats, because that's I think me and Mike were talking. And
I'm big into like Japanese culture.
And stuff, so. I was just talking to my wife the other day about like Japanese culture is crazy because they'll take anything that we do and make it like 50 times better. Like, have you ever
like cattle?
Like cattle or bass fishing? Dude,
I didn't know about bass fishing.
I'll send you down a thing. Oh,
those Japanese bass?
All the best bass baits come from Japan. Like 1,000%. They're all.
Did not know that.
Yeah, dude. There's a whole, like the world record bass is from Lake Biwa there in Japan. It's like a 26-pound bass.
Did you know they have amazing like skiing too?
Yeah, dude.
So like I'm a big, I love snowboarding. Like one of my favorite things to do. And one of my dream trips is to go.
See, I have one of my really good friends. He was in this huge metal band that toured the world until a couple years ago, and he spent a little time with his dad in Japan, and then went back there last year. And he's the one that got me into all like realizing how crazy Japan is and everything. Yeah, but like
they love like Western culture a lot.
There's this video, I'll have to find it. It's one of my favorite things in the world. It's like a late '80s, early '90s honky tonk, and they're singing Johnny Paycheck, but it's like real. Like the dialect is like the beats off, and it makes like the most amazing way that song could sound. It's like Take This Job Can Shove It, but it's kind of like off beat, and it's very odd, but it's really cool.
Is it the lo-fi thing?
No, it's just like dudes dressing up. Like it's probably like when Urban Cowboy hit there. Okay. That whole thing.
Fascinating.
Which like that whole thing, my dad says that he would always get mad about like, yeah, I hate Urban Cowboy. Wranglers went up $20 and never went back down.
Oh, it's the truth, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the truth.
I feel like we're going through the second wave of that right now, of like the second wave of what happened with that Urban Cowboy.
And like I can dig it. Like I want, because I love the culture. I love Western culture and like cowboy culture and all. I love it, man. Yeah. And I want people to experience that because it's very rich.
Yeah, yeah.
At the same time, like, you're not fooling anybody.
Yeah, right.
Like I don't wear a cowboy hat, like dress up, do all that. That's totally cool. But like the second that you're gonna like give somebody else a hard time because they're not wearing their hat,
right?
It's like, bro, you're an accountant. Pump the brakes.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know. Like I'm a real big like Western nerd, and going back into like, I think the funniest thing about like when people go back and look at like the Wild West. The Wild West lasted like 10 years. It wasn't like a long lasting thing. It was just in front of the railroad, Okay. And when the railroad was over, nobody cared about like cowboy culture or the Wild West until movies made it cool in like mid, the 50s or whatever. So like that, I always found like that's a really interesting part of it is like being a cowboy was not glamorous because like at the time that it was really big, it was just like the poorest people alive and the roughest jobs in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. Yeah. People don't want to do that. They want to go live in the city where it's nice.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And then even within the cowboy culture, man, you just got to be careful about how you talk because there's always somebody that's like more cowboy.
Oh, yeah.
And there's always somebody that's less.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if you get a little too big for your britches, there's gonna be some dude that you bump into that you're like, oh my gosh, this dude's a real deal.
I love the dudes. I mean, like, there's a dude that he worked out here with my dad when he did, but he's known him his whole life. Dude's name is Pokey. And yeah. I never met a more cowboy fella than this guy had. Yeah. Every morning I'd see him, and he had this twirly mustache that went down, and his shirt was always wet from where he was washing his mustache. Oh. And it's gross, but like I was like,
that just had a profound impact on me. Like that,
visual of it.
Oh my gosh! I'm glad you said because of him washing it.
Just the drool.
I was just thinking, just like, oh gosh, dude, I'm gonna get sick. I have issues with stuff like that. Even somebody like eating, you know,
dude, I hate it.
I did Brisby's podcast recently, and we were talking about like my phobia, or not, I guess it would be phonias.
Yeah, like the audio of stuff.
Oh,
dude. I
like somebody,
dude, like, absolutely. It drives me crazy.
I annoy myself.
Same. You know? That was something like when everything shut down for like, you know, we had the whole shutdown last year. That was something that I was very happy I didn't have to do. Like listen to people eat. And I'm kind of like, I don't know if I want to hear people eat anymore.
This is going to sound super mean.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't say this.
Do it.
But like, I love old people.
Yeah.
Okay? I love them. But like when I'm eating in a restaurant, I can't watch them eat.
Oh, yeah.
Like watching an old person gum down a steak.
Yeah, dude.
I just can't do it, man.
Me and my wife talk about this all the time of like, once I get to a certain age, it's okay to just like turn me out. Like, I don't want to.
Turn me out to pasture.
Dude. Well, I have a plan. It's fine. I was like, let's go to like super bear infested woods, right? Like the most bear infested you could find.
Sure. And
just dose me up with LSD and push me in there.
Okay.
And I'm done. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be buried anyway. Like that whole thing of like.
I heard an acid trip is like contagious.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe with the bears, they can. I mean, if they're eating me, they probably will get some.
They probably would.
Yeah. They last for a while. They're good.
Maybe contagious wasn't the right word.
Yeah, I mean, like acid bear carnival. That'd be cool.
What would you call that if you consumed something that, and then you caught it?
You know, like
contagious.
Like psychedelic contamination, maybe.
Whoa.
That sounds like
an album. That sounds like an album title.
Psychedelic contamination. Yeah.
That's gonna be hard to say.
It's like the opposite of like, you know, radiation. It's like you're putting psychedelics in the water and the whole world's dosed.
I feel like I just got it.
There you go. You're woke now. Welcome to it, dude.
Hey, what would can you divulge? This is my first time meeting you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're making this design
it actually
for me,
makes
which is kind of cool.
Yeah. This actually makes it like the only other podcast I've done, I knew the guy. And so it felt like I was repeating stuff.
Yeah.
But meeting somebody and doing it kind of makes it worth it.
Yeah, I was doing it where we would go over here at Sweetie Pie's Ribeyes. Sweetie Pie's Ribeyes. They can use that too.
There you go.
They're like right next door from where we do our podcast. And normally they got great steaks. But normally whenever I have a guest, like we go over there and have lunch, you know, before it. But then I found we'd sit there and have lunch for an hour, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we'd come in here and then you'd have to like redo all of it.
You just feel like you're hearing the stories twice.
So now I've started doing it where it's like I just want to walk in, meet them, then do it.
Yeah.
And talk to people.
I think it's a way better format.
Yeah. But what I was going to ask is if you could divulge sort of your idea because you're doing the coyote design.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, so like I'm going back and forth with it because I definitely know like the layout, like I know what I want, the lettering and everything. And so one idea I have, I feel like it might be too, I won't say dark, but a little like not mainstream.
It's a dark song.
It is a dark song. And so like what I was
Did you catch it too? You got it.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Yeah. And like I grew up coyote hunting, you know, and like I do the whole, and so what I was thinking about for a long time was just like skins on a fence.
Yeah.
You know, because like that's, you know, when you grow up doing that. And the other one I had, which I'm not going to use, I don't like it. It was like the idea of like crosshairs, of crosshairs with a coyote in it, you know, with the other idea. Because I don't want to, I don't know. It's kind of weird to try to like give too much away with a lyric shirt with it.
Right.
Because you don't want to overdo it. Because just getting the imagery of like, I know I want it to look like an old truck stop shirt with the name and the circle.
Yeah.
And then like, but I think that's about as wordy as I want to get with it. And then just do kind of like a coyote scene with it.
Yeah.
With it and not try to do, you know, I like the Western, like the retro Western feel of it, where it's just a coyote like out there. But I like the crosshairs, but it's a little dark in it, because that's really on the nose.
Yeah. It's like too literal.
It's a little too literal. A little too literal.
Yeah. Because what I could tell from some of your stuff is, I don't know if the right word is surrealism. You do some of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I saw one with like an eyeball.
Yeah, man.
That was pretty wild looking.
A lot of that stuff, I really like old, like 50s to 60s, like sci-fi, like Western or sci-fi stuff. Yeah. And then I like old Western stuff too, and just kind of putting those together with it. Yeah.
So listen to this idea. I have a song called Stampede. Okay. You should go listen to it. Because I like taking some like Western ideas or like traditional, I guess you call them cowboy ideas. Yeah. But then try to write them in a way that is a little bit more palatable to a broader audience. Yeah. Like use some of those aesthetics and some of those topics, but then make it in a more to where we're not actually just talking about going out and we're riding the fence. Right. We're going to camp out under the stars. So like this song Stampede, I'm using the metaphor of a stampede, but applying it to like a relationship or like even a friendship. Because like in the chorus, it says like even on these city streets, and like I have to scream stampede. And so my idea was,
is that kind of like an overwhelm thing? Like the stampede is like a stampede, like the not personification, but like just the idea of like the overwhelm, because that feels like a stampede. When you're overwhelmed by a person or people or whatever, it's like a stampede.
Yeah. Every time you're with me, I have to scream stampede. And it says like, even on these city streets, like wrecking balls, we trample on this town. Yeah. Okay. So it was like, so my idea was to somehow do the stampede, but like going through an actual city. Oh, and the first lyrics of the song are, when the sky fades to black, rain, cloud, thunder rolls and paints the night with lightning bolts. And so you had like this almost thunderstorm hovering over the city. For sure. And you have the stampede going through the city and maybe even knocking down some buildings.
Yeah, that's awesome. I dig that.
Yeah, but like real abstract looking like that.
And it could definitely go into like that comic book style like we were talking about, with that. Well, and you were talking about like modern settings with like old lyrics. That's one of the things, like I know everybody loves Sturgill, but like there's like that Hilltop Mountain album.
My favorite one.
Me too. Absolutely. And I think what I love about that is that he takes he doesn't try to be like a cowboy in the 60s trying to do his thing. He's making honky tonk music for now.
Yeah. And he's up there in his New Balances.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you talk about like not having to look that, people gave him so much shit for that. Well,
but what's interesting is it would have hit me sort of just, it would have been corny if he's up there in his little getup. Absolutely. Playing that music. It would have been like, oh, okay, got it. Seen this before. But it was striking that it was like, well, this guy doesn't care. But it's super country.
Well, yeah. And when he's like, like the stuff about like, what is that song with spending all my money on weed and pills, where he talks about like I could be in a tank and
try to write a song that can pay your bills.
That's like so modern as hell, but it feels like the most country honky tonk song you've heard, and that's what it was, because those dudes then, they were writing what's around them, not like another time. Yeah, yeah. And that's like when you look at like Waylon and stuff, it wasn't like he was like making some dreamy landscape. It was like what I'm dealing with here now, what it is. Yeah. And so like I think people like nostalgia is a killer, like you look back and they think, oh, it was so great then. But like I truly believe that like every time's the same. We just look back on it differently.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, like nostalgia makes you think, oh, I was like, oh, the 90s were so beautiful. Yeah, they were just a time, man, and you lived in it.
Yeah, 20 years from now, people are just going to look at this time with some sort of nostalgia.
It'll be something for sure. Yeah.
No, but it is interesting to see the different, little time capsules.
One of the weirdest things, speaking on that, is like I was looking through like books of like references that you look when you're drawing and stuff, and I was looking online at new stuff. And it's really odd because I wouldn't want to do this, but like there's so many things that are doing like masks and stuff. I was like, man,
how weird.
It is super weird. Well, it's like you see movies and stuff now, and you see movies that were made this last year, and they're about that. I'm like, man, you know what I don't want to hear about?
Oh, that. Yeah. Gosh. See an album cover with like a mask.
Dude, like, gross.
Jeez.
Artists to escape that, like not deal with that.
Exactly. Yeah, like calling it the COVID sessions.
Dude,
it's like
rough. Gosh, not a fan.
Yeah, that's like the last thing I want to remember,
dude, for sure.
Give me find find something in there. Like I'm making some music right now and using some things sonically and production wise with the music that I'm making, that what I felt like during the whole COVID stuff and the things that I saw getting popular because of the way other people were feeling,
right?
Like musically, like incorporating some of that stuff into my production and into my music.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's feeling based. It's not like I'm going to call it the COVID session.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's like the whole, like being too on the nose is kind of rough, you know?
I would agree. Yeah.
Like, because I don't know, it's
like hearing songs written where it's like, bro, you ever heard of using a metaphor? Like you don't have to say, I like her and I love her.
Well, and I don't like hearing people explain their songs either. Like, I think that it's all open to interpretation because my idea of it is completely different. Like, let's just say like Coyote, from what you say to what I say, I could probably take something completely different out of it.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah. Well, it's like that Stampede song. I wrote it more from a perspective of a relationship.
Right.
And then people were talking about, yeah, man, it's just you and your buddies burning it down. And I was like, interesting.
Even just hearing the lines from it is like, I take it like a different way. It's like, you know, when you're with somebody and it feels right, but they're like a little much. Like they're like, I've had people that like, we have some interesting.
Like probably me.
Well, no, mine is more just like, okay, so I always call it punishing. You've met this person, like you're at a show, somebody comes up to you after and they tell you everything about you. Oh. And they won't like let you breathe. And they're just like right there and they want you to do this and they want to show you this person. They want to talk to you like, what does this mean? What does that do? Do you want to do this? Can I buy you a drink?
Yeah.
It's like that Punisher stuff, man. It's a little rough. Like people.
The Punisher. Man. We're going to have to start saying that.
Man, that's what like having friends in bands and stuff. That's what we always talked about is the people. Cause like I was talking about my buddy that, you know, goes on tour. He has like, I like metal, but metalheads are the worst fans in the world, but the best fans too. They're very loyal, but like, he would come off stage and be like, oh, yeah. He was like, dude, I just had to like get ready because I was out there and like I'm sweating and I just did this thing and I come off stage and there's just going to be like these dorks in my face just overdoing it.
Dorks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's people like that. But at the same time, it's like,
I mean,
I'm tickled to death that they're even that interested.
For sure. But like, and I think more mine is just like in that moment, you just kind of came off this little bit of a high and you're like trying to, okay, dude.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, so how does somebody are you mostly referral based at this point?
I mean, like,
or are there people that can actually get in touch
anybody
with
can. And like, that's what's weird is I've been getting like all over the place. I love the fact that like we're talking about like art being like hoity-toity, you know, my whole not mission. That sounds really intense. My whole thing I'm going for is I want to be like the blue collar artist. I want to be the person that breaks down those like big walls of like, I don't want to work with this person because I can't, because design should be accessible to anyone.
Yeah.
Like I see that old design that like my aesthetic or whatever you want to call it is I always liked like feed store design, you know, like I want to be somebody that like, I would love for just like a regular guy to hit me up and be like, hey, I've got this business going. Let's do this. Because those walls of like art and blue collar are kind of bullshit. And I want to tear those down.
Here's a question. Do you do a lot of the art like on an iPad?
So it really just depends. Like it depends what I'm going for. I start out like I would call my iPad like a sketchbook. My iPad is what I do like my ideas on because there's no setup to it. I can just sit down and go, you know, and then like I'll go from there. And if usually what I'll do, if it's like, it depends on what style they're going for. If they want a really clean one, I won't go to pen and paper, but like if it's kind of like the rough and rugged thing, I go from that and then I take it to paper. Yeah. And I draw it out like that and then I scan it in and go from there.
Because I've always had an idea for just a music video, very simple, would be whoever does the design for maybe that song, get a time-lapsed version of them creating the artwork.
Oh, yeah.
And just do that as the music video.
I've been trying to get a little set up there because I know people for some reason love that, like the live videos or whatever, you know.
Yeah,
I did.
And you just put it in like whatever,
like a time lapse thing.
Yeah, where it's like real quick, and then it would just be for the song.
I did a what are they called? Like the canvases for Spotify, you know. I did one for a dude out in Wyoming that's a songwriter named Jordan Smith, where I did like drew his face. And
Jordan Smith.
Yeah.
Jordan, like Isaac Smith?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Where's he at?
He's out of Wyoming.
Oh no, it's not the same guy.
No,
I got a good friend.
This is a dude. He's from Wyoming out there. He's a really good songwriter. But I did like a few songs for him, and like that was it.
That was
okay. It's like an 8-second lapse, but which is cool. But like 8 seconds is real quick.
Yeah,
and so it looks like insane how fast it's going.
Yeah, mine would be like 3 minutes.
Seeing that, I think that would work. Like totally, is like getting like a top view of it.
Be super cool.
It would be. Yeah, that's a super rad idea. Like, especially because I just see people's like, I love seeing stuff like that because I like seeing, from my point of view, other people's workspace and how they work.
Yeah.
Because mine, like we were talking about your brain being everywhere. I'm sure if people that are like classically trained or whatever look at mine, they're like, what are you doing? Because mine is like, I'll finish like half these letters, then I'll go over here and finish them, then I'll go over here. And it all just comes together like really interestingly. Like I was watching a time lapse because like when you use on the iPad, you can do a time lapse of me doing that. We were talking about that Read South poster. And it's like, I got halfway through the name, then I went down to a bird, then I went down over here, and it just looks insane.
Yeah.
But I think it's like a video of the inner working of my brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
For better, for
worse.
Well,
but that's what art is.
I think so. Yeah. I stopped caring. Like somebody told me a while back, like I used to always think like, oh man, what are people that, do this going to think of it? And I had to write a big sign. I put it right on top of my like desk. It was like, stop making for other designers.
100%, man.
Like,
I'm right there with you.
Like you don't write songs for their songwriters.
Nope. If somebody wants to be a part of it and you dig it, great. If not, whatever. I'm going to keep doing my thing and writing songs in my room.
Because like that's kind of the thing of it is like somebody asked me a while back, it's like, why do you do it? At this point, it's because I can't not. Mm-hmm. Like I've tried to like not create for a while, and like I'll just pick up like little odd jobs and go try to do them, and I remember why I do what I do. Like. Yeah.
It's more uncomfortable to not do it.
All I can think about all the time, like whenever I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this today. I think about all the times that I've had like the worst jobs. And then I just got like, and now I'm like, you would kick your own ass if you saw yourself now because you're waking up to draw, dude. Like you're waking up to work with, I mainly work with musicians. It's like you're going to work with musicians that you never thought you would, and you're doing it. Remember like 6 years ago when you were waking up at 4 a.m. to load trucks with a forklift and you hated your life? Like, what are you doing, man? Like
perspective.
And that's all it is. Like I have to remind myself that all the time is like, it could always be worse.
Totally. Well, your website, people can go there if they need to get any type of work done, and they can get in touch with you on your website.
Yeah. There's right on the front there. I even have an express lane. It's just my name, Stoney Wayne Bass.
Heck yeah.
I didn't figure you could do much better than just my name.
Yeah, perfect. So people can go to that. Instagram, you're kind of on all of it.
Yeah, man. And it's just that name. You can find it.
And we'll have the old coyote design coming out here pretty soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and we'll be able to.
I'm excited on that one.
Yeah, heck yeah, dude. Well, thanks for coming in.
Absolutely, man.
Yep. See y'all later. We'll catch you next time.